Call the meeting to order. This is the Village Riverside Board of Trustees regular meeting for Thursday, October 17th. The time is 7 o'clock. And I would ask our clerk to please call the roll.
President Sell.
Here.
Trustee Sussman.
Here.
Trustee Hamilton.
Here.
Trustee Pollock.
Here.
Trustee Howard.
Here.
Trustee Foley.
Here.
Now with us this evening, Trustee Valerie. Village Manager Scalera.
Here.
Village Attorney Molina.
Here.
Village Attorney Myers.
Here.
Also present, Village Clerk Haley.
Do you have a quorum? If you'll please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone tonight. Please be aware that you're more than welcome to have comments at any time during our meeting. You can have them now during public comment, or if you prefer to wait to a particular agenda item, you're welcome to do that as well. I just ask that you do be recognized by the president and that you make your comments from the podium so that everybody at home can hear and see what you have to say. So first up for this evening is public comment. Would anyone like to address the board? Mr. Cariello?
Nick Cariello, 354 Lina Road, Riverside. I hope the board has a smile on their face tonight. Relative to Section 8 of this agenda, the bond issue of $555,000. At that time, will there be a dialogue by the board on the specific explanation of the necessary outstanding obligations of the village? I just have a couple of questions. I offered my questions to the finance director, but she would prefer if I address the board, if the questions are suitable for her to answer. I imagine that's why she told me just to speak. My question is, what is the yearly cost of principal and interest on said bonds and the cost of the issuance of said bonds? Explanation of the direct annual tax to pay for said bonds, and will there be a village tax increase because of the levy? I note that tonight is really a full house agenda. This board, after 6 months of being elected, this board is issuing $555,000 worth of bonds and tonight, spending over $480,000. This is quite a meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cariello. And those questions will be addressed when we get to the appropriate agenda item. Anyone else like to address the board this evening? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Gint Liotrovninkas, and I'm here on behalf of the Frederick Law Olmsted Society of Riverside. And I come to you, as I do every month, to share with you some of our upcoming events and activities. Our next landscape workday will be taking place on Saturday, November 9th. It'll be in Big Ball Park. It takes place from 9 a.m. until 12 noon. We invite everyone to come and help maintain the beauty of our landscape here in Riverside. Service hours are available for those who need them. Please bring gloves and some water, and snacks and other tools will be provided. So we look forward to everyone coming out for our last work day in November. Coming up also is our last walking tour of Riverside. It will be taking place on Sunday, October 27th. It departs from the train station from the east platform at 2 p.m. Tickets are $10 and $7 for seniors and Olmsted Society members. I'd like to point out that the Society's had a banner year with our walking tours this year, and last month of September, we had one of our more unusual tours take place. We had a sizable contingent from the garden clubs of Illinois join us here. There are about 36 people, and they were senior citizens, so they ended up having a car tour rather than a walking tour. So Jim Prechezelka of the Society led the tour. He began with an overview of Riverside and its history at the library, and then they took their drive around Riverside and stopped for the various locations, and then got a chance actually to get into the Coonley backyard to see the sunken garden, which was a big treat for them. And they ended their tour with lunch at Molly's. And we're happy to say that they were all very pleased with the tour, and we continue to see a lot of people coming to Riverside and getting to know Riverside through these tours. So we're happy to see the way in which this contributes to the livelihood of Riverside. So we invite everyone to visit our website, olmstedsociety.org, for additional news and information as well as membership. Any questions or comments?
I had a question. At the chamber the other night, the Olmsted representative was talking about the possibility of having some joint bicycle tours with Oak Park. Do you know anything?
I don't know about that personally, but it doesn't surprise me. We've established a working relationship with Oak Park. We are advertising through their tourism bureau there, and certainly as soon as I learn more about that, I'll be sharing that at upcoming meetings.
Well, congratulations on the banner year you had with the tours.
Yes, indeed.
That's
We're
great.
very, very happy about that.
We're all very proud of you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much.
Anyone else? Did you want to say something about the farmers market?
I'm Amy Jaksic, 340 Olmsted, and I was invited by President Sales to give a recap on the 2013 Riverside Farmers Market season. As other markets in our area are continuing to struggle to survive, we found that this was our most successful year yet. So we're in our 5th year as the Riverside Farmers Market. We continue to be the fastest growing farmers market in the western suburbs and a model for others, I found. I continue to receive phone calls and emails multiple times a month from other markets, either looking to figure out what the key to our success is or vendors interested in joining our market. And that continues year-round, not even necessarily during the active farmers market season. As a market, we have 3 major goals, and the first being to make healthful, fresh, locally grown produce more readily available right here in our community, in addition to all the great items that we can get at Riverside Foods. The second being to bring people to our village center, including those from outside of Riverside, in support of our local businesses. And the third, create a sense of community among shoppers and vendors who attend the Wednesday markets. And I can happily confirm that we achieved all 3 of our goals again for the 5th year in a row. We achieved our goal of making fresh, locally grown produce more readily available by increasing the number of farmers attending our market this season. And through working with our friends at Riverside Foods, we continue to strive to find unique ways to incorporate them into the market in a manner that is satisfactory to them so that we are not direct competitors. So it's really important to us that we partner with Riverside Foods and get them involved. We easily achieved our second goal of bringing people to our village center, including those from outside of Riverside this year. This was our first year where we were actively recruiting shoppers from outside of the village through advertising and using social media. And we're glad to report that we have regular shoppers, so it's not necessarily a one-off, regular shoppers joining us from Berwyn, Stickney, Lyons, McCook, Forest Park, LaGrange, Cicero, North Riverside, Oak Park, Brookfield, and even the city of Chicago. We hope that by bringing in shoppers from outside of Riverside, that they will realize what a special place that Riverside is and be encouraged to explore our community and support our businesses here. We achieved our third goal of creating a sense of community among shoppers and vendors who attend the Wednesday markets. I think each of our committee members can share stories about residents stopping them around town and sharing their disappointment that the season was over and how they will miss having the market as a weekly gathering place in the community. It may surprise you to know that our market ended on October 2nd, and our committee met for the first time on October 10th to begin planning for the 2014 season, so we're already getting started. We're the only market that we know of personally in Chicagoland that is run entirely by resident volunteers. Other Chicagoland markets have paid market managers or are run by local village employees or their chambers of commerce. I'm proud to say that our 11-person committee works tirelessly to bring this offering to our community at no cost to our village. We receive no funding from the Village of Riverside. This is a year-round, unpaid job for us, but I speak for the committee when I say that it's a labor of love. We will continue to bring an improved market to Riverside each season for as long as you will support us. I know that one of the key recommendations of the CMAP plan for Riverside was that the village do more to support the market, and I encourage the board to think about how you can support us. I want to share that we are currently pursuing the ability to accept EBT, which is electronic benefits transfer. It's kind of the new food stamps at the market in 2014, and have our fingers crossed that we'll cut through all the necessary red tape to get that up and going for this upcoming season. We have Riverside resident Jeff Nolan volunteering his time to create a video for us that we'll use for promotional purposes to attract new shoppers and new vendors. And I'm happy to say that we already have 4 new residents joining our committee for 2014, but we can always use additional help. So if you're interested in helping out, please contact Kathy Haley in the village office. That's probably the easiest way for you to get in touch. But we welcome input from you about how we're doing. We've already sent out a electronic survey through the village, so we encourage you guys to participate and offer up your feedback, because we do factor that into our plans for 2014. Thanks for your support this season. I welcome any questions or comments from you guys. I see many of you there regularly, so I appreciate your support.
Do you keep a census of approximately how many people attend the market?
It's really challenging because we have so many entrances to our market. So it is unusual that we've got all those different entrances. Many markets, because we do a lot of visiting of area markets, kind of see what's going on around there, often have one entrance, so it's easier for someone to sit there and click away. Lots of times we do it by the pizza guys, because we can do that from week to week and compare apples to apples. So we will ask them every week, how many did you sell? And they sell out every week. But it gives us an idea of how much traffic there is based on what they've sold that week. Any questions
So would I
for
be
us?
putting you on the spot to ask you who the members of the committee are?
Pardon me?
Would I be putting you on the spot to ask you to give us who the committee members are?
The current ones, I will
guess
look
I
to
am.
Kathy Haley in case I forget, but that's not putting me on the spot. Kathy Haley, Paige Fox, Sue Pipel, who has a hand in everything in this village, Dorothy and Janice from the Riverside Public Library, and they are a key member of our committee because they fully integrated themselves into our plans, and they provide all of our programming at zero cost, which is fantastic. Kathy Alexander, Christine Legan,
Diane Moriarty.
thanks, Kathy, Diane Moriarty.
Well,
Sorry, it's gotten so large from
Kate
our
Nolan.
Kate Nolan, Helen Gallagher.
Yes, Helen.
Deb
Deb
Garman,
Garman.
thank you. Thank you. And then we've had 4 additional members come on board this season. So it's helped significantly because it was a committee of me and Kathy at the beginning, and it's
We have to acknowledge Amy. Amy carried all of us on her back this year. She did everything. She did all the photos. She posted everything to Facebook. She was there almost every week at the beginning and at the end, and with her best helper, Jake, who did an excellent job. And that's, I think, has been the key to our success, is that the vendors really appreciate all of the volunteers, and it makes a big difference to them, and they in turn radiate that out to the customers, so.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, I know I look forward to it every week, and I'm in the unfortunate situation now of starting to ration my fresh eggs.
Yes.
Trying to make them last as long as possible. So thank you. Amy,
My
to you
pleasure.
and your
It really
committee.
is.
It's a
And
huge benefit to our town. Let us know if there are things that the board can do to help you. Let us know.
Great. And you do donate the land for our market, so we are certainly appreciative of that.
Jake, did you have a question?
Well, actually, no. You can help out with the main issue for Riverside farmers market by simply just going to other farmers markets and saying, hey, you guys look like a great place. How about you guys come over on Wednesdays to Riverside farmers market? It's really easy.
He goes to a lot of markets with me, can you tell?
We're going to
Thank
clone
you.
him.
Thanks for your support, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jake.
You need him on the EDC.
I tell you.
Her secret weapon.
So next up, anyone else? Next up is our village president's report. I have nothing this evening. Village manager.
I only have two items. The first is, if you've noticed any movie trucks in town, that's because ABC is back in town doing another shoot for their Betrayal TV series that's been airing every Sunday night. Today, they were filming primarily here behind the Village Hall on the Swinging Bridge and at a residential location on Lincoln Avenue. Tomorrow, they will be along the Scottswood area, and they will be filming primarily scenes indoor and outdoor between 10 a.m. and possibly 1:30 a.m. tomorrow. So please be aware of the fact that there may be some temporary street closures to allow for the taping, but we will have the various intersections manned and try and accommodate the residents in that area so that we can get them in and out without any disruption. And then the other item is something of good news and acknowledgement on the part of Jessica for her effort. As a follow-up to the banking RFP that was completed, that the board entered into a contract with Wintrust Bank, Riverside Bank. We have just learned that based on the fees, we are going to be cutting our fees in half. And that will result in greater savings than we originally anticipated. So I thought that was good news that I'd like to share with the board as well as the community, that by doing some of those little things will help save us money down the road. So that is all I have.
Any questions for our village manager? Okay, moving on. Next up is the approval of the consent agenda. I would just like to highlight 4 of the items that do regard expenditures of money. Number H is a resolution authorizing the village manager to create a purchase order in the amount of $29,796 for the purchase of rock salt from Morton Salt Company for the 2013-2014 snow and ice control. Next is a resolution authorizing the village manager to approve a blanket purchase order in the amount of $150,000 for the purchase of fuel for village vehicles. Next is a resolution authorizing the village manager to execute a contract in the amount of $31,680 with SKC Construction for the 2013 street crack sealing program. And lastly, a resolution authorizing the village manager to execute a contract in the amount of $202,638 with J.A. Johnson Paving Company for the 2013 street rehabilitation program. So with those and the other items, does any trust need anything removed from the consent agenda for discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion and a second for approval. Motion by Ms. Sussman, second by Mr. Foley. Please call the roll.
Trustee Sussman.
Aye.
Trustee Hamilton.
Aye.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Foley.
Aye.
Motion carries. There are no reports of departments and commissions this evening. Next up are ordinances and resolutions. But before I get there, I keep noticing, and Halloween is coming. And this, our decoration tonight is thanks to Ms. Early in our building department. So we have our own little goblin up here. So everyone be good tonight. First up is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $555,000 general obligation limited tax refunding bonds, Series 2013, of the Village of Riverside, Cook County, Illinois, to refund certain outstanding obligations of the village and the levy of a direct annual tax to pay the principal and interest in said bonds. Ms. Francis? You're not going to use all those papers, are you?
No. You have to remember, budget's also on the agenda. I figured I would probably start by answering some of Mr. Cariello's concerns and questions as it relates to this issuance. This is a new issuance per se, but it is stemming from a 2001 issuance. I just want to make sure it was the end of 2001. It straddled 2002, sorry. The process started in 2001 for the building of the Public Works facility. How they structured this particular bond issuance is basically the village issued alternate revenue bonds, backing it with the limited tax bond issuance, which we have to issue every 2.5 years approximately to pay for that alternate revenue bond issuance. So this has been going on every 2.5 years approximately. So the last time it was issued was back in 2011 to pay off the alternate revenue. We actually abate the alternate revenue bonds and then we issue the limited tax bonds to pay off that particular portion of the issuance over time.
Was that alternate revenue bonds for the Public Works building?
That is correct. And so basically it is cost neutral in that respect. The limited tax bonds are basically the allowance that the village has that's non-referendum debt that we can go ahead and go out and issue, and it's limited by obviously what our tax limitation laws are, and then it's also capped by CPI every year. So it grows incrementally, but it's capped by CPI in the respective years. And that's something that's new. In the past, it just remained stagnant. But it increasing by CPI, I believe, started back in either 2009 or 2010, where it started to incrementally grow. As it relates to this particular issuance, it will pay for our debt service that is due December 1st of this year, and then we'll go through partially paying through December 1st of 2015. So there will be a little bit of money left in escrow for the December 1st of 2015. So we will have to issue again in late December of 2015 for the additional 2.5 years. The reason why limited tax debt is structured in this particular manner is because basically you have to utilize, when you issue debt, you have to pay, those funds have to be utilized within 2.5 years. So that's why we have to basically issue it every 2.5 years because we have to utilize those funds out of escrow within that time frame. So this isn't necessarily, it is cost neutral as it relates to debt because it's just paying off debt that we would otherwise have. And then you'll notice when we do the tax levy and the abatement ordinances that the alternate revenue bonds will be abated as part of that process.
And we will be doing this until 2021 until it's paid off.
And then they'll be paid. That is correct. So this isn't something new that this particular board entered into. This is something that occurred back in 2002 that we essentially have to follow through with.
And just to emphasize the other point Ms. Cariello asked, there is no tax increase involved with the issuance of these bonds?
No, because basically we're issuing debt to pay off the outstanding debt, so we're not issuing anything in addition to.
Right.
And also, just as a follow-up, we actually did a refunding of the initial bonds back in 2010 for cost savings. Usually when you're issuing a refunding, there's due to a cost savings on interest. And so they had done that back in 2010.
What is the cost saving?
Back in 2010, I don't have those figures available. At a minimum, anytime you're doing a refunding, there at least has to be, the threshold is at least $25,000 to $40,000 in savings, or else it's not worth it for the village or the financial advisors, et cetera, to go through the issuance process.
I believe at that time there was a savings of between $25,000 and $30,000, if I recall correctly.
what is the cost of issuing these bonds?
Of these particular bonds?
Yes.
Just a second.
Does the cost of the bonds also?
Of course.
savings?
It's in the, well, for these bonds, there is no savings because like I said, it's an alternate. These bonds are being issued to pay for the 2010A refunding, which was the original 2002 issuance that we had made.
And my question is, how much does it cost to pass these bonds?
For this particular issuance, it will be approximately $15,000.
13?
15.
15, correct. 15.
That doesn't offset the 25,000.
Unfortunately, with regard to this issuance,
There is no savings.
we're not issuing it to save money. We're issuing it because we have an obligation from the original 2002 issuance. If we don't issue these, the taxpayers are going to have to pay for it either way. So if we don't issue these, then we're going to be unable to abate the original issuance. And the original issuance was based on the premise of issuing the limited tax bonds on every 2.5-year basis.
What I'm saying is
You
that
have to really stand up and talk. Can you talk in the
if the issuance of the bonds are 50,000 and
No, the cost is 15,000.
15, okay. And you say that,
That was, the savings occurred when we refinanced back in 2011. These are two different things.
okay, I understand 50.
No, it's
And if
15.
it's 50,
It's not.
then the taxpayers are on for that extra.
Yeah, it isn't 50, it's 15. So do the trustees have any questions or comments about this issuance? I'd ask for a motion and a second for the passing of the ordinance.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Sussman, second by Ms. Hamilton. Please call the roll.
Trustee Sussman.
Aye.
Trustee Hamilton.
Aye.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Foley.
Ordinance carries. Next up is a resolution of the Village of Riverside, Illinois, authorizing the village manager to issue a purchase order to Telecom Innovations Group for a village-wide telecommunications system and services not to exceed $70,213. Ms. Francis.
The village went out to do a request for proposal process with the assistance of our IT consulting company, Client First, and actually a representative from Client First, Tom Wyman, is here in case there are any questions of the board as it relates to the process or the phone system that will be installed as a whole, because that is their level of expertise, and because this is going to be a voice-over IP phone system, we felt it was important to incorporate our IT consulting firm within this process. As you can tell from the summary, we had 3. I want to make sure I'm accurately reflecting. No, sorry, 4. We had 4 individuals that submitted proposals. The 2 finalists were 2 different types of phone systems, both voice over IP, but had different options, and as it relates, different types of structure as it related to maintenance and things of that sort. We actually had not only demonstrations and interviews, we had staff come in, demo the phones, ask the questions to make sure that we were providing for a phone that would be the correct fit for the Village of Riverside. Not only providing the service level as it relates to integrating it to technology, but also the options that were needed. And so actually this process started back in March of this year, if you can believe it, where Mr. Wyman came in, sat with instrumental staff, what I kind of have coined as the power users of our phone system, to find out exactly what are our needs, what are some of the issues that we're encountering, what would they like to see in a new phone system, and basically he incorporated that all together and told us, here are the different technologies are available, let's outline them, and let's gather them and see what we can receive as a proposal process. So that's exactly what we did. And we were very happy with actually the proposals that we received. They were extremely competitive, and as you can see, it was outlined. The vendor that we're recommending is TIG, and incorporating all the expenses outside of the scope as well of TIG for potential equipment, patch cables, et cetera, and also utilization of the services by client first. The project as a whole will come in $46,000 under budget. And believe me, I've thrown in every contingency I can potentially think of. That's why the resolution is approximately 10% above what the contract price is, so that I don't need to come back to the board in case there is a potential change order, something that perhaps we hadn't anticipated as it relates to the cabling. Because this is an older building, we tried to cover all the bases, but I just want to make sure that I'm certain that there will be limited change orders, but I wanted to make sure I had a little bit of a buffer. So that is pretty much it. And like I said, Mr. Wyman is here and is happy to entertain any questions that the village board may have as a whole. He has been an instrumental part. He will be here throughout the implementation, and that's why they're listed as part of the totality of the project price, because he will be here as they implement and make sure everything goes smoothly till the end, till we're ready to send them the final check of payment. Yes.
I have a couple of questions, Jessica. First of all, congratulations. Great job on soliciting these bids and getting such competitive bids and coming in under budget. We always like to hear that. My first question is, could you give us an idea of maybe some of the things that this new system will allow our village employees to do with the new system that we have not been able to do before?
Sure. And maybe Tom could even come up and add to some of the information I'll be providing. As it relates to integrating with, for example, Outlook, if Peter wants to know if I'm out of the office or on a call, it'll actually reflect out of office, because the phone system will integrate as well with our Outlook. Also, if, for example, the building department, there are a number of times where people aren't very clear with their contact number, and unfortunately, Patty, the way the system is currently set up, we can't necessarily retrieve some of those numbers on caller ID, which has been a big problem. This will actually integrate so that she can take that information from the unified communication system, drop it into her Outlook, and then she has the contact information of her last call, and can, because some of these contractors will come back to the village and do regular business with the village, and she has it all now in her Outlook. And so it becomes very useful in that respect, where it's integrated at all components.
So this will also, over time, give you ability in the various departments to see the volume of calls that are coming and going.
Yes, there is call accounting that is included as part of the contract. In addition to that, for example, if the trustees get a voicemail into their mailbox, it could then go to their voicemail, and they could listen to the voicemail from their email, and delete it as well, or keep it if they choose to do so. And so it also provides an ability to provide an additional response time that wasn't available previously, and to know what's going on in real time within the various departments. There's also something in which is called twinning, that a department head, for example, if they leave their desk and they're waiting for a call, they can actually twin their cell phone device to their phone, so if someone's calling in, they can get the call on their cell phone. And it'll appear as if the person is just calling their regular line, but it's integrated to their cell phone. So it provides a little bit more expeditious response on various items.
The system's also designed to have some disaster recovery also. It hasn't been quite engineered, the equipment's engineered the right way, but the lines, we're still evaluating how we're going to do this. But generally speaking, you're going to have some redundancy built into the system also. So to give the village some options as far as bad weather, this building being without power, and Public Works having power, and those kinds of options related to it. We thought all the way through that. So.
Additionally, this is also another nice option, which just what Tom said just made me think of it. When, for example, there's a disaster event such as a flood, we actually now will have a call center where, for example, I can be set up in the queue to answer calls, so it won't be just perhaps Public Works or the village manager's office. You set it up, and so that multiple people can be answering calls and addressing concerns, or at least taking down their name and information, saying we'll be able to get back to you or follow up with you expeditiously, versus now where it's just one point of contact where they may get a busy signal or may get voicemail, and so it affords us a lot more flexibility and we'll be able to provide better service to residents as a whole.
Great. My second question is, what's the implementation schedule anticipated for this?
I kind of compressed it on Tom. Everything will be done by December 31st of this year.
Merry Christmas.
Because I wanted it to coincide with the budgetary cycle.
So we're going to have to get busy.
Are there any other
Other
questions?
than this building, who else is included in this system? You said Public Works.
Public Works, Parks, all the departments. So, for example, in the past, certain individuals haven't been able to transfer over. That will be a thing of the past. So when someone calls in, we'll be able to transfer them and saying, instead of saying, hold on, I can provide you the number, but unfortunately I can't transfer you.
Okay. Are police and fire included or no?
Yes.
They are. Great.
Yes.
And Parks and Rec, so.
Very good.
Plus, the way that this system works allows the village to reduce costs. I mean, the system will allow us to centralize lines and services so that we'll be able to, get a better bang for the buck on the services that we buy. So we're estimating about $7,000 a year in annual savings.
Any other questions from the trustees? I'd ask for a motion and a second to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Collins, second by Mr. Foley. No further discussion. Please call the roll.
Trustee Sussman.
Aye.
Trustee Hamilton. Aye. Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Foley.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is a continuation of our budget discussion from the prior meetings. This is where we start going through the stack of papers.
Well, this is just kind of my budget file as a whole.
Well, it's all yours, Ms. Francis. Lead us through it.
Basically, the outstanding items that were remaining from the prior budget discussions are the IRMA deductible, the squad cars for police, and then additionally parking lot 1 and resurfacing and how we were going to approach that. With regard to the IRMA deductible, I had provided some supporting documentation as it related to our 5 years experience. I showed the total in less detail as it related to over 10 years, what has been our experience. As you will notice, more recently we've had a decline in numbers of claims, which I think is attributable to staff trying to educate other staff members as to the value of the IRMA website, having safety first. IRMA's website also offers employee logins where they can learn different safety mechanisms, whether it's procedure, policy, etc. And especially the Public Works Department has really tried to empower employees, and now they all have actual logins to where they can access the site. It's limited in the scope of what kind of information they can access. They can't access to the same level I can access information, but it's limited to things that pertain to what they do for the village on a day-to-day basis. So I provided what the potential general fund savings would be if we moved to a $50,000, a $25,000, or a $10,000 optional deductible. And I put just the impact as a whole for the general fund, since that's the fund that bears the majority of the cost as it relates to our contribution to IRMA on an annual basis.
This would have been a savings over a period of what time?
This is just for this upcoming year.
For the 1 year?
Yes. Basically how IRMA works is they tell you what your contribution, and as I provided, we have our preliminary contribution of what it will be to IRMA, and then they inform us if you choose a $10,000 deductible, you'll receive this percentage of credit. So it'll reduce your contribution for that year. and so on and so forth. Depending on the higher level you go, obviously, the greater the credit, but the greater the risk. I also provided what our claims experience has been in total claims and then claims that were over 10, 25, and 50. So obviously, certain ones that were counted for over 10, there's 2 of them that made it up to over 50 in 2008. And then you can look at the respective years thereafter. The number of claims actually dwindle for those particular levels. I also included, there were some questions as it related to some of the definitions. I was throwing out terms at the last meeting, and so I provided some additional information as it relates to the deductible, experience modifier, et cetera, just to provide some background for the village board as a whole. And then additionally, within the packet, there is a memo from Chief Weitzel in regards to the squad cars, the changeover costs, et cetera, which he is available here to address any questions or concerns. Village Manager Scalera emailed out to the board as a whole the memo in regards to the commuter lot number 1 and potential resurfacing options. And then also, I included within this packet the capital progression, because there was one item in talking to Orion Gailey, who is the village engineer. We were discussing the sewer sufficiency study, and that has yet to be completed. And we still have the Scottswood sewer project that has not been done yet this fiscal year. And with the weather turning, we don't want to necessarily start construction in cooler weather. And so everyone was of the consensus that we defer that particular project from the Water and Sewer Fund until next fiscal year.
Okay, so first up, let's tackle the question of the IRMA deductible.
Can I start with a real simple question or remedial question? What types of claims, so we have workers' comp would be a type of claim.
Workers' comp,
What
general
else?
liability.
So somebody trips on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay.
Any type of thing with public official liability. I'm trying to think of anything. There are optional coverages.
Employment issues are also employment
Pardon?
issues? Legal issues?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. As it relates to, for example, we have the DROM coverage for the volunteers through IRMA. We also have the optional coverage of the underground storage tank through IRMA. It's an optional coverage. They bid it out and make sure they get competitive pricing. The police pension purchases the fiduciary coverage under IRMA because it is the best price that they would not be able to get otherwise if it
So
were
all
not for the
those would
village.
also be subject to this?
No.
Those are separate?
Those
So
are
these are the ones that
separate.
you're naming, they're separate?
Correct,
Okay, all right.
correct. This is just as it relates to the workers' comp, general liability
Gotcha.
types of coverage.
Okay.
So it seems to me, looking at the information that's been provided, that we should really be looking at the 50,000 or the 25,000. What do you think?
I would agree with that.
Which do you think?
The 50,000.
50? That would be my leaning. What do the trustees think?
I'm pretty risk averse, and so that really scares me, the idea of that with no limit to it. There is no, and you said there is no like aggregate level.
No, but I will tell you that I did provide the listing of communities that have the 50,000, the 100,000, et
Two
cetera.
have 50 and two have 100.
I used to work for the one with the 100. I was very nervous. We started incrementally at 10, 25, and when they started moving up to the 100, because I was basically the claims coordinator, the IRMA alternate, and so I was very reluctant. But I think if you budget properly, and then also in addition to that, you have to keep it in perspective. You're usually not going to incur that full deductible amount in a given fiscal year. So you can plan accordingly. In addition to that, you have that excess surplus that's being banked at IRMA, that's earning interest. And as the budget stands as of right now, we are not touching that. And we also have a significant unassigned fund balance that's available to the village. Not to say that we're going to use it, but in case there was that occurrence. But if you look at the history over the past 5 years, we really haven't had a significant hit as it relates to multiple. Not to say that...
Right, but we just had one, and so maybe that's why I'm
It happened though,
concern.
technically it occurred in 2011.
Right.
So it's based on when the actual claim, so to speak, is filed, or
Right.
the date of injury or date of incident. So if you look historically, there have been many years where we don't even get up to the $50,000 level.
When you look at the other communities, the listing that you gave us, of those, 2 have 100, 2 have 50, 11 have 25,000, 10 have 10,000, and 44 have 2,500.
And you know what? Many of those communities that have the lower level, the 2,500, used to come up to me and they're like, how do you plan for that higher deductible? And there's only so much planning that you can do, because with risk, you can never achieve that you're going to avert all risk, nor are you going to know all of the unknowns. For example, a sidewalk fall or something of that sort, or a workers' comp that could have been a potential fluke. But you have to plan accordingly. You have to be conservative as it relates to those things. And there are communities that are looking to go higher, actually. I know of one of them that's looking to go to 175,000. At that point, you're looking at potentially being self-insured.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. But you also get the credit from IRMA. And you can also choose after that 1 year, you know what, we're done bearing this risk, we're going to go back down a level. So there is that counterbalance. And with regard to that $32,000 that's available at IRMA for us to cash out, we can cash it out no longer on an annual basis, on a quarterly basis. So if we get hit with a significant amount of claims within a particular month or quarter, we can contact IRMA and say, we need that $30,000. And then they will go ahead and issue us a check or wire us the funds
How often can you change this deductible, and on what date?
annually. So we we have to get back to IRMA by late November as to what our optional deductible is going to be. If we do not choose an optional deductible or get back to them by the deadline, they automatically assume it was the prior year's deductible, which is the $2,500 level.
We had already discussed as a board going to 10, correct?
That is correct.
In my opinion, only 20% of the communities that you looked at have over $10,000 deductible. I think that we're entering into, I mean, it's a decision that needs to be made as to how risk averse you want to be, but we're definitely entering into a different category at that point. So
Did you have to notice what the populations and all were of those?
it's varied.
Yeah.
Some of the small ones
Because
have
we're
large.
small.
Yeah.
I mean, we're small.
Right. But some of the big ones have very small deductibles too, some that could easily afford.
So you
large
would
claims.
opt for the 25,000,
I would not go higher than 25.
and Sussman would like 50.
I'm okay with the 50.
And so what does everybody else think?
I'm at
I'm
25.
okay with going a
25?
little higher than that.
What did you
I'm
say?
okay with 50.
50? Mr. Pollard?
I don't feel strongly about it, I'm okay with 50.
Do we need 4 for this?
Oh,
For-
to make the change? Yes.
Okay, I would opt for 50 as well. So that takes care of the first one, okay? Moving on to the vehicle replacement. Are there other questions that the board has for Chief Weitzel or Ms. Francis?
I had one thing. This one car that we're talking about outfitting for the deputy chief, with the loss of trade-in and the new outfitting on it, it's a cost of $9,000. How many years are left on that car?
That would be, so 53 would roll down to the deputy
Right.
chief. And according to Riverside Garage, we could get another year out of it. They say they need to put in just about $950 just in maintenance to get it up. And then there's the painting. We got 3 bids for the painting. This is the middle bid. And $2,500 to outfit it from a marked car to an unmarked car. So my between another 15 to 20,000 miles, that car will be close to 90,000 miles by budget time for 2015.
So you're only anticipating getting 1 more year out of this car?
Yeah, depending on that. Well, and I would have it reevaluated again by Riverside Garage. But Riverside Garage said, putting in the work that they put in, we could definitely get another year out of it.
But it's at a cost of $9,000.
No.
It's going to cost.
It's a loss of trade-in of $5,000.
Yeah, but if you
$4,000.
include the loss of the trade-in, that's
Right.
correct.
So it's a cost of $9,000 for 1 more year. I don't know that it's worth it.
I actually agree with you also. I understand I missed the initial discussion, and I talked to Jessica and others about it, but I do agree with you on that.
Yeah.
So what is your suggestion?
We purchase the other car.
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth it to roll this down for a cost of $9,000 for 1 year.
I agree.
So you're saying that you want to purchase both the squads and the detective?
If that's what we need, yeah. I don't think that we should roll this car down at this cost.
Mr. Bailey?
I agree.
I agree.
Consensus?
I agree.
Okay. Did you get that, Ms. Francis?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next up is the resurfacing of commuter lot number 1. Ed, did you want to fill us in on the cost analysis? It is the staff's recommendation that we defer this item to 2015, but
I don't think, well, I don't know, when did you send it?
It was today. I did not get a chance to read it.
We didn't get it, yeah. Do you have hard copies?
so you have
of
not
it?
seen? You have not seen
No, we
this?
haven't seen it.
Um,
And I checked late in the day.
Yeah, it came this afternoon. Ed, do you want to run through the cost analysis and the breakdown of the
I
various
didn't bring
options?
a copy of that myself.
Okay, well then, why don't we? Are there any questions or comments about the capital projects
I have a couple of
progression
questions.
table? Ed, why don't you give us a second while he gets copies for everyone? Ms. Francis,
Yes, Jess, I have a.
we're going to talk about the capital projects progression table while we're getting copies of the memorandum.
Certainly.
And Ms. Sussman had some
I
questions.
do. The ball field restoration. I think I must have missed that. This is something that I'm always a bit confused on. We pay for the village pays for the ball field restoration. This is not Little League.
There are
Does
certain
it?
costs as it relates to Little League that we are reimbursed for, and I believe we are reimbursed for, there are certain fees that Parks and Rec do charge Little League for field use. But we obviously, it is our responsibility to have the ball fields up to par every season.
Okay, so it's a rental fee as opposed to, okay.
Instead of them outright writing us a check for the $12,000, we charge them a rental fee.
Okay, so there's really a net here.
Yes.
At the end of the day. Okay.
And then also bear in mind that the village had made the decision that Parks and Rec would pay for their capital, so we'll be transferring money at the end of this fiscal year.
I understand
Okay,
that that's
sorry.
a different fund. No, I appreciate you reminding us. Then I have one more question. Could you explain the Scottswood sewer replacement? I thought we were actually postponing that until, okay, so it's 2014. It's not even going to start till 2014, right?
Correct.
Because of the season.
Correct, because it was
Okay.
originally budgeted this year.
It was originally, okay, got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the capital projects? Okay, let's just take a minute and let the trustees have a chance to look over this memorandum, and then Mr. Bailey can go through it with us.
What is an asphalt drive lane?
He'll explain all that.
Okay.
So for the folks at home, while the trustees are reading through this, the issue that we're talking about is the commuter parking lot that's over by between the train station and the swim club. We had originally, the prior board had originally spoke in terms of actually just resurfacing that lot, making it an asphalt lot, in keeping with the residents' determination on the green referendum. We have made a determination at this board that we're always going to consider green, sustainable alternatives to all infrastructure projects. So with that in mind, we asked staff to go back and to bring back to the board alternative ways of actually handling parking lot number 1 that incorporated the green, sustainable technology. So that's what we're talking about tonight. Are we ready for Mr. Bailey? Mr. Bailey, do you want to walk us through this memorandum?
The current condition of the majority of parking, commuter lot 1 is quite deteriorated. The asphalt surface is well beyond its life expectancy. And a year or so ago, we submitted a grant to fund creation of a green parking lot that would include permeable paver bricks, rain gardens, those types of things to help absorb, capture rainwater in its entirety on that lot. That would capture 97%, I think, of the rainwater expected to fall on that parking lot. Comes with a hefty price tag. The cost was approximately $1 million. And that is a significant cost, obviously, if there's no grant funding, and the grant application was not successful. So the parking lot still needs attention, and we did come up with some alternatives to completely making a permeable paver parking lot. You can see in this cover memo that the construction cost would be $724,000 for the permeable paver parking lot. The life of the asset is 50 years. An alternative would be to make the parking lot into a combination of asphalt overlay and permeable pavers. The drive lanes would be asphalt and the parking stalls would be permeable pavers. That significantly reduces the cost. And then just a relatively simple asphalt overlay would be $317,000. The annual life cycle cost or maintenance cost is approximately the same for all of these. The time that you spend the money would differ a bit. In the asphalt lot, obviously, you're probably going to go several years before you have to perform any maintenance on it. And during the lifespan of an asphalt lot, probably the most significant maintenance task you would do is crack seal it. And then at some point, if you let it go, it gets up to its life expectancy and beyond, you're going to be pothole patching it, such as what we're doing on Commuter Lot 1 right now. So the part of the issue with this, significant part of this issue with a green parking lot is that you're capturing rainwater, managing it on site, holding it on site so it doesn't affect the sewer system. The other thing is these permeable paver parking lot protects the environment. It captures pollutants and whatnot that fall off cars that are parked on it. And instead of letting that get into the environment, it typically will, that stuff will permeate into the subsurface of the parking lot and be captured. So, I mean, and you pay for that, but these are three options that present some different price points, I guess you could say. One is the complete permeable paver parking lot. The other is a combination. And thirdly, there's strictly asphalt, which would be basically what's on there now.
So, I have a question, Ed. But if the asphalt only has a 15-year life,
right,
then over the 50 years of the permeable pavers, you'd be replacing the asphalt approximately 3 times.
Right. The finance director did go through that exercise, and despite the fact that the permeable pavers have a lifespan of about 50 years, it would still be less expensive to install asphalt, just as a pure cost matter.
I don't get that.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Well,
you are correct that the 50-year lifespan of a permeable paver lot would basically entail repaving the lot three times.
So that'd be three times
okay.
317.
I missed. Yeah, I was.
So that's $1 million right there.
Right.
And, so, I'm sorry, we finished?
Well, I mean, my point is that that makes a big difference when you're looking at what the capital costs are, not just the maintenance costs, but the capital costs. And then the only other question I think I have some of the same questions Jean has, because I can see her busily circling things, so I'm going to let her have her own time. But I do have one question, and that is, on the combo, I'd be a little bit concerned about having to repair and replace that asphalt drive lane and the effect that might have on the placement of the pavers that are right next to it.
Typically, the asphalt and the pavers are managed by concrete ribbons. In this particular case, there would be like width of concrete between the pavers and the asphalt so that you would be able to protect the integrity of the pavers while you're resurfacing.
Okay. So I do have a follow-up
Yes.
question to that. I do have a question about the annual maintenance costs, Ed, please. If you look at the paver stalls and the asphalt drive lane, the asphalt drive lane, you have an annual maintenance cost of $5,700.
That's basically
Is that
taking-
$85,000 divided by
15?
Then why wouldn't the pure asphalt have that same calculation? So in other words, if I read this correctly, the asphalt drive lane doesn't have an annual maintenance. It has the 15-year replacement in here. But let me just finish. But the asphalt itself just has the annual maintenance. It doesn't have the 318,000 divided by 15.
Right.
I just want to make sure we're talking about apples to apples here.
The 56, that number shouldn't be that. It should be similar to the
200
straight
or whatever,
asphalt, right?
yeah. Okay.
The 85,000 that's in the 15th year to repave just the drive lane, that's what
Right.
the cost would be.
Would you do a calculation for us sometime, Peter, of, I can do it myself, but of just dividing out the construction cost by the number of years, adding in the maintenance, so that we get like an actual cost per year of each option?
Extended for 50 years,
Right,
right?
extend it for the life of the parking lot.
I can give you one calculation along those lines that I did kind of quickly, and this goes to Trustee Hamilton's point. I mean, as you'll see in the memorandum, the parking lot fund currently has a net surplus of roughly $194,000, and as of December of 2012, and as of right now, we have an additional $35,000. I spoke with the village manager, and he said that we were looking at approximately a $35,000 a year surplus from the parking lot fund. So, and again, the staff has suggested that we defer this, but just for the thought exercise here. If you were to apply the existing parking lot funds to the cost of the permeable paver lot, and then use the $35,000 a year surplus from the parking lot fund, we would pay for the permeable paver lot in 17 years. And then you'd have another 33-year life expectancy of that lot.
But what about the other parking lots that need to be resurfaced during that period? We wouldn't have any money for maintaining them.
I'm just talking about just this particular one. Right. I mean, that's
so we really wouldn't have that $35,000 because that has to go for the other parking lots.
Right. Right. And the other option, and this is why the suggestion is to defer it. The other option is exactly that, is to look at all of our parking lots more globally, with an idea of how would you actually handle the green alternative to handle our parking lots over the long term. That might be something that we wanted to talk about in terms of a referendum question, for example.
Right.
I mean, that's another way of doing it. But if you compare it out, replacing the asphalt 3.5 times, you end up with $1 million construction cost, over $1 million construction cost versus the 700.
If you just divide the 700 cost of the permeable paver by the 50 years, it comes out to $14,400 a year is what your cost is.
Right, that's the annual depreciation, yeah.
Right. The asphalt comes out to $21,000.
Right.
So actually,
And did you add in the replacement for the asphalt drive lane? So it's a little bit more than that.
Right, just the two.
Because that has to be replaced a couple of times.
I didn't look at the middle. I didn't look at the middle option at all. Just the two.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
The top and the lower one.
And I think anyone who's done any kind of sustainable project with regard to their own homes, I mean, this is typical. I mean, the upfront cost appears to be more, but when you take it over the lifetime of the project, you see that the savings comes out over the longer term.
Well, it's just like a new driveway. It's cheaper to do an asphalt than it is.
Now, the other thing that I wanted to bring to the board's attention is we did have a preliminary meeting this past week with Chicago Wilderness with regard to the regional project they're doing with the Upper Des Plaines, watershed project, the ecosystem. And part of that regional work has to do with green infrastructure. So as this conversation moves forward over the next year or two, with Riverside being a central figure in this, there is an opportunity that we also might be able to get grant funding for these kind of projects, which is another reason to let's take a year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all, the other reality is that technology is constantly changing in this area.
Right.
So it seems to me to make sense to let's take a year to study this more fully, see what other grant opportunities we have, see what technology increases we have. Ms. Sussman?
I do have a question about this. One of the reasons for doing this, or one way to prioritize it, would be where the sustainability need is the greatest. And I'm just curious about the amount of runoff. I mean, I know it's more than the runoff. I know it's using asphalt. I know it's all that other sort of thing. But really, to do a cost comparison, we need to understand what the environmental effects are of using one kind of material versus another. And I know that that's just something that people are wrestling with, how you build those costs in. But I do think that's part of the discussion, because it's always going to be a question of trade-offs and prioritizing, and which project is more important in terms of meeting our goal of having a sustainable. It's not on the river. I understand there's a question of runoff already, that it goes into the soil, it doesn't go into the river. So I would just like to make sure, I don't expect us to do that tonight, but I'd like to make sure that we have the full complement of discussion when we start making these decisions.
As part of the grant application that we did submit, we have all of that information.
Oh, okay, great.
So.
Yeah, and the other thing too that's a possibility, it's kind of novel, but we just broached it today, would be, you know, because the runoff does affect the sewer systems. You know, is it feasible that we might be able to use water and sewer funds as well for some of this work? You know, that's an open question, something that we can investigate going down the line. But anyways, you can see there are a lot of potentials and possibilities out there, which I think is what drove staff's recommendation to defer this for a year. Does the board agree with that?
Ed has also been exploring another possibility to help with runoff.
Well, we have this comprehensive sewer system analysis that's underway that should be delivered by the end of the year. It's going slower than we anticipated because the village actually didn't have as much information as is necessary, so the engineers had to develop information. You'll see a lot of the catch basins and whatnot have numbers written on them, and that's part of their measuring the depth of them and so on and so forth. But one of the things, just for example, that we will probably be considering as a way to kind of contend with the surcharging problem is that we can, a lot of communities have done this, but you can put flow restrictors, for instance, in the manholes, and it's just like a baffle, a sheet of metal or something like that with a small hole in it, and it restricts water from getting into the sewer system. It results then in the streets being used for storage, which is a part of a sewer system, storage of water on the streets. Very inexpensive, though. So I think the important thing about going forward is we're thinking about a combination of things. Green infrastructure, I think, almost certainly has to be part of a solution to our old undercapacity sewer system. That's why it's important to think about these parking lots, because that's a lot of water they were designed to just sheet that water off the parking lots into the streets and sewer systems. And then, you know, low-cost things like these flow restrictors that, you know, they're not novel. It's other communities have done it, and they can be quite effective in controlling surcharging. I did also request the village engineer a month or so ago to provide estimates for resurfacing 3 other parking lots. Parking lot 5, which is right out here by the police department. Parking lot 3 is on Park Place, and then I forgot the number, but it's behind Riverside Garage. Those are all of these parking lots are in poor condition if you looked at them, or you know they are. But we'll have a cost for asphalt, and then we'll be able to wrap green alternatives into that, probably following on the same discussion, the same memo. So we have some comprehensiveness.
That's perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for, I think, as a board. So I take it the board agrees with staff's recommendation to defer for a year?
Yes.
And the last item that the board had discussed at the last meeting, and you asked me to try and come up with at least rough estimates, is the rubble garage, or we call it the rubble garage, the facility located directly behind the village hall here that has been used over the years as the Parks and Recreation garage. Because of the roof leaking, for the past few months now, it has not been utilized by Parks and Rec, and it actually is sitting empty. So Ed reached out to a architect to obtain a estimate to replace just the flat roof, and we were provided with a quote of roughly $20,000, $25,000. At the same time, we also met with two independent contractors to look at the building itself, and we received two different quotes, primarily because I met with one, Bob met with the other, and we hadn't had a chance to really talk about every single thing that we would like. So the quote that I obtained is a little bit higher than the one he obtained, but mine had more items. But if you take out those things, Bob and I sat down today and we looked at it, they're roughly about the same. So those pricings came in at roughly $65,000.
For a new building?
No.
For renovation?
To rehabilitate the existing building. And both quotes would change the flat roof to a hip-style roof, placement of larger oversized gutters to capture some of that runoff, because our primary concern was if we put in a hip roof, we don't want to be directing water to the Township Hall building. So we would be placing an oversized gutter that would capture that and bring it down. The repair of the entire stucco exterior, the removal of the ceiling interior of the space, power washing the entire interior space, replacement of windows, overhead doors, and service door, and then also pouring a concrete walk to access the service door that's currently not there. And as well as building some interior shelving for it. So the board had asked, in light of the Northgate property and the board's direction in the coming months, to go out and obtain bids to demolish the property. And since that is currently where we are utilizing as our storage facility for Parks and Rec, my recommendation would be to add to the budget for fiscal year 2014. Although these came in at roughly 65, I think Ed, Bob, and I would want to sit down, create one specific bid document that we can then send out. But as a placeholder, because I'm similar to Jessica, I like to build in contingencies to make sure that we have enough, and I'm not coming back asking you guys for more money. I think I'd ask that the board allow us to add into the budget a probably $90,000 placeholder for the garage in the back. I'm confident that it'll come in under that, but just as a placeholder. So,
Peter, what's the square footage of the building?
I have that written down, but I don't have it with my piece of paper.
In terms of the amount of storage for vehicles and such, what?
We would be able to basically store, currently, a flatbed truck, as well as a, what's that trailer? The trailer that carries one of the mowers that we use to maintain the baseball fields, as well as basically all of the storage would be, we would have more than enough space to put the chalk dust that we use to line the fields, the soccer nets that we use to store during off-season, soccer balls, baseball bats, coaching equipment. So it's large enough that it can accommodate all of the storage needs of the Parks and Rec Department. The only thing that it will not is we're including in the budget the purchase of the bus. That would have to be probably located to either that one space. Currently, if you go towards the back, towards the swinging bridge, to the overhead door that leads to the police department, there is a space there that it's a covered space, but it's still open to the elements, and that's where I think we felt would be the most effective place to place the bus. The other places we've talked with Ed is we could place it in one of the wash bays for overnight parking at Public Works, and then we could then pull it out when we needed to use the wash bay. But we're confident, at least as a staff, that we thought that number, it's a pretty good number to renovate that building and then address some of the space needs that we do have.
Okay. Can I propose an alternative? Since this is the first we've heard this. I know that you've already sent out a directive to our various departments to start consolidating and trying to, the first thing we need to do, I think, is find out how much storage space we actually have if we compress, get rid of things we no longer need. Let's find out how much we actually need. Another possibility would be a metal building, over at the Public Works.
Is this building heated?
It will be.
It will be heated.
And what I would like, I think before we really have this discussion, I think that the trustees need to have this in front of them in a memorandum format that they can actually.
Unfortunately, all of these cost estimates came in today.
Yeah,
so.
that's fine. But we have plenty of time. We can take a look at it over the next couple of weeks, and we can talk about it.
Well, we really don't have much time.
But we're not going to make a decision on a $90,000 placeholder without sufficient information.
When's the latest that we can?
What can be done is basically we would approve the budget as is. We can continue to evaluate this project, and then it would basically be a budget amendment for fiscal year 2014 as a possibility. Because basically we need to get the budget document prepared. I need to present it to you at the next board meeting. It needs to be out in public purview for essentially a month, close to a month, before we have our hearing, for our budget hearing, and then we have to have adoption. Because I don't know if you recall last year, I had split that up where we did the hearing, the first reading, and then we did our secondary reading at another meeting. Because now we don't have to have necessarily the two readings. We'll have the hearing at one meeting, and then we'll have the actual adoption of the ordinance at the follow-up meeting. So we are somewhat compressed as it relates to budget at this point.
I'm okay with, even though I'm not a fan of budget amendments, I am okay with reviewing it and providing the board additional time to review this item and then making an amendment if we wanted to move forward with it next fiscal year.
Is that okay with the trustees?
I'd also like to see figures on a new building, though, like a metal building.
Right. And let's get rid of the stuff we don't need and find out how much available space we really have with the existing structures that we have. So that's also, because there's no reason to start building new spaces until we've used what we've got. So,
and I will say that I don't think, under any circumstances, I'd be in favor of just putting a roof on a building that's in that bad of shape. Right. So that would, to me, it would be good money after bad. So
okay.
Yeah.
So are we in agreement on that? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Francis.
Thank you.
That is it for the budget discussion. Is there any new business? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Collins. Second by Mr. Foley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting is adjourned.